We are down to the home stretch of the NFL season, and some teams are getting early returns on their 2023 draft classes, while, well, some high draft picks have had fairly disappointing rookie years and have left much to be desired. Now, I'm not saying this is a push the panic button or pull the alarm type of situation. We have seen players bounce back from terrible debuts and eventually become solid players and, in some cases, top at their position, like an Andrew Thomas. Sure, it would be nice if these guys could be instant superstars, but sometimes you gotta learn to fall before you can fly, and you gotta leave the ground before you can touch the sky. I got that from Paw Patrol the movie. Dad life, am I right? But let's go ahead, kick off the list with the rookie who has probably had the most disappointing year, considering what the team invested in him, and that's Bryce Young. He was the first overall pick for the Carolina Panthers, who moved up, traded 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, and DJ Moore to acquire Bryce Young. The unfortunate thing is, well, once they traded DJ Moore away, didn't leave him with much at wide receiver. That's been a problem for the Panthers is, well, the receiver's lack of separation, the interior offensive line, giving up pressure galore. On top of that, injuries on that interior. I mean, the sticky Ike Ekwonu, he's kind of having a bit of an up-down year. But at the end of the day, despite all that, it's not like Bryce Young has really shown us flashes or anything to get excited about. Even just a little meat on the bone would be nice. He's thrown for 9 touchdowns, thrown for 9 interceptions. But you look at like the big time throws, only 12 to 19 turnover-worthy plays, and a completion rate of 70.9%. That's adjusted completion percentage, which takes out drops, it takes out spikes and throwaways. So a really bad completion percentage. It's been a lost year for Bryce Young. I mean, so much so, it got Frank Reich fired after 11 games. The question is, okay, if they start adding more talent, more pass catchers, how will Bryce Young look next year? Because if there isn't a significant leap or even just a moderate leap in terms of production, yeah, you're probably going to be smashing the alarm. It's going to be a hands on deck, we have a problem type of situation if Bryce Young looks not much improved next year. But next on the list, I got Quentin Johnston. This one does hurt my heart quite a bit. I was a big fan of Quentin Johnston. He ended up drafted at pick 22 for the Chargers, going ahead of guys like, well, stinking Zay Flowers, who's been tearing it up. You got Puka Nacua, and I mean, just other rookies have had better years than Quentin Johnston. And the thing was, like, if we had healthy Mike Williams, then looking at Johnston's production, 29 receptions, 33 receiving yards, and a touchdown, not all that bad. The problem is Mike Williams got hurt early, and Johnston didn't really step up. Instead, it was like, well, Joshua Palmer for a couple, and then he got hurt. So with all these pass catchers getting hurt, how is Johnston not producing well? And I mean, some of it's like, okay, maybe he's just not getting thrown to because you go to the Baltimore game, he only had 3 receptions despite being a starter. I mean, they are kind of just like chucking it to like your Austin Eckler's, your Keenan Allen, which Keenan Allen, I mean, I don't blame him. That's a great receiver there. But at the same time, like, I know people will be like, oh, hands aren't good, but he has a 6.5 drop rate. That's not bad. Only 2 drops this season. It's just, they were very costly drops. With the Green Bay one in particular, probably costing them a chance at least tying the game. So Quentin Johnston, I mean, there has to be a lot of improvement next season. Because Justin Herbert needs not just pass catchers, healthy pass catchers. Quentin Johnston, despite being healthy, hasn't really helped much. And I mean, at this point with Herbert out the rest of the season, it feels like kind of a lost year for Johnston. Okay, let's keep the train rolling with Cody Mauch. He was the 49th pick in the second round. And it's, listen, if you weren't around for like everyone's eval on Cody Mauch, I think a large portion of people saw him as someone that's not going to be good right away. So looking at his production and where he struggled, it's kind of fair. We were like, this guy's a really good athlete, but he needs to continue to put on play strength, put on functional strength in general, especially because he was a former tackle kicking to guard now in the NFL. You're going to need that. Like you saw him at the Senior Bowl where, yeah, his anchor was very questionable. And that's kind of proved the point since the Bucs decided to make him an instant starter, as it's just kind of been the struggle bus this year for him. He currently has given up 38 pressures, 6 sacks. And if you go look at that, those 38 pressures are tied for 10th most allowed in the NFL and is actually the most allowed for the guard position. Not a great start, but something that you shouldn't be hitting the panic button because it was to be expected. He was someone that was going to need to develop, so starting him right away probably wasn't the most ideal situation, but honestly, as long as you're not going to quit on him, then it probably is A-okay. So, and to be fair, he's had a couple of good games, but there are some real stinkers in there, like San Francisco. He gave up 10 pressures and a sack. You go to like Carolina, gave up 4 pressures. Detroit gave up 5. So there's some legit stinkers in there for Cody Mauch, unfortunately.
Listen, I know you love the NFL draft as much as I do, and you're going to want a nice hefty watch list of players during this college football season. Well, go ahead, check out my draft guide. You can purchase it for only $30 by Venmoing or PayPaling me. Links in the description. It's a one-time payment and you get it for this whole draft cycle and forever and always. Technically, it's a Google spreadsheet. So send me your email when you send the payment. I'll get you hooked up. You will see my current prospect rankings and big board, my full evals. And guess what? It updates throughout the whole draft cycle. So it's a great purchase and it's a great way to support the channel.
But I want to stick to the offensive line, and I want to talk about John Michael Schmitz Jr. for a little bit. And to be fair, I think he's been good the last couple of weeks. He did struggle with a shoulder injury at parts in this season, but it just hasn't been ideal. And I think a lot of that has to do with just how bad the Giants offense has been in general and how bad the parts around them have been. So it might not necessarily be a hit the alarm, hit the panic button type of situation. But I mean, you look at him, he was pick 58, but he was viewed as one of the most pro-ready prospects. So like plug and play. It's just unfortunate that, okay, Andrew Thomas goes down. So suddenly, trouble in paradise, trouble at tackle. But they've had other injuries to where it's like you've seen a guy like Justin Pugh have to move over to left tackle and get mollywopped. Devin Neal hasn't been that good this year. And just everything around him just hasn't been good. So why should we expect him to be good? But he's going to probably often be worried about, okay, everyone else's situation. Like, okay, where else is pressure coming from? Maybe I could like leverage up on a combo block or something. So I expect next year to be much better, as I expect the Giants to go into free agency and try to bring in some veteran bodies for that interior. So I think I honestly think that John Michael Schmitz will be on the up and up. Moving to the defense, I got Keion White. Man, he was the 47th pick. I thought it was a bit high. I was never on the Keion White bandwagon for much of the draft cycle. I thought he was a bit of a project, but I get why people liked him. I mean, you looked at the tools, 6'5", 229, and I mean, at the end of the day, just hasn't produced that well. But again, is a bit of a project. May have just been drafted a little higher than he should have. Only 16 pressures this year, a sack, but the pass rush win rate, 6.3%. It's a little better if you consider how the Patriots are using him. Like, he's not just like exclusively on the edge, but he'll line up over top of the tackle and sometimes inside of the tackle. So they're trying to use him in a versatile way, which is the manner you want to use him in. But all in all, like just a cat that does look like he is a project. So not someone I'm hitting the panic button on too soon. But I'll tell you this, Tyree Wilson certainly you can make a case for. As Tyree Wilson, I was never completely on the train of, but eventually I did end up moving up because I saw what other people saw. Like 6'6", 275, great play strength, very good run defender, which unfortunately hasn't really been the case this season. But someone who has that upside as a pass rusher, again, with that length, can turn speed to power and whatnot. Very productive at Texas Tech. Ends up going 7th overall to the Las Vegas Raiders, but has just been very bad. 13 pressures, 3 sacks, a 5% win rate. Not great. He should have been viewed more as a project. But to be fair, I think last game against Minnesota may have been his best game of the season. 4 pressures, had a sack there. Maybe it's a sign of things to come. Maybe he could be like an Andrew Thomas, which, again, yeah, that's on the offensive side of the line. But Andrew Thomas, who had a really bad first season, except for down the stretch, you started to see some of the flashes. Maybe that'll be the case for Tyree Wilson. Now I got to talk about the secondary. Deonte Banks might be a surprise name on here for some people, as he was the 25th pick in the NFL draft. And in all honesty, his last couple of games have been very good against the Patriots and against the Packers. But like all in all, I mean, I don't think it was like a blowaway year. He's allowed 4 touchdowns this season. He has, I think, he's been flagged 8 times. So, I mean, I knew he was a handsy guy going into the draft, so that doesn't surprise me much. But I mean, he was kind of thrown into a cornerback 1 role. So not necessarily I wouldn't say it's a disappointing season. He just kind of makes the list because, well, in terms of production, it's not like a great season. There's some corners in this class that were having much better years, including one that was drafted behind, actually a few that were drafted behind him. But I think nonetheless, he's shown the ball skills. And I mean, he's been tested quite a bit this year. I mean, allowing a 56.5% completion rate on 85 targets, that's a good number. That's a good number there. So definitely a lot of promise here, and just kind of like he just kind of makes this list because it's a more disappointing season than some of the other draft picks that were around him. Speaking of which, Tyrique Stevenson, yeah, you could say no, he's kind of had a bad year. I think this cat is fair to put on the list. He was picked 57, and he has allowed 8 touchdowns this season. That is a huge number. Again, kind of thrown to the fire here. But I don't know if, outside of some of the ball skills, I don't think there's a ton of promise that tells me, oh, he's going to end up being a shutdown corner league. I think it's like maybe at best, we got a solid cornerback too, but he does have to take that next step next year, right? So I think a big reason he was drafted is because at 6'4", 204 pounds, he is a very good athlete. But this season allowed a completion rate of 70%, and that's on 81 targets. Allowed 8 touchdowns. Does have 8 pass breakups and interception, but he's been flagged 7 times. He has been the guy. I mean, honestly, to be fair, Tyrique Stevenson is kind of a big reason why Jalen Johnson's having a big season, because they're not throwing Jalen Johnson's way. They're looking at the rookie and being like, let's try to exploit that. So a totally different scenario here in terms of what you've seen in Deonte Banks, right? Because Banks, you could argue that they have very similar I don't want to say numbers, but they have similar numbers in terms of how many targets. And you look at, okay, Stevenson, 70%. Okay, Banks, 56%. Stevenson is allowed 8 touchdowns. Banks, 4. So, okay, you kind of see the big difference there. This is kind of truly what a very disappointing rookie season looks like. Quickly, do want to move to the linebackers. Not that a lot of linebackers have looked good this year. Really, none of them have. But got to talk about Jack Campbell. But I think with Jack Campbell, there has been a lot of... I think there's a lot of promise there. Don't get me wrong. It's just he has just not been good in coverage. He just hasn't. He hasn't shown... I would say he hasn't really shown a good awareness in coverage. Hasn't shown a nose for the football, and really at best, and I mean at best, might be a minimal gain type of guy. If you're unfamiliar with that term, it's just might not have those splash plays in coverage like interception, pass breakup, but someone who will make the tackle on someone who gets essentially gets a reception on them. Like, typically, hey, you might catch the ball, but those 4 to 6 yards you get underneath aren't going to be the only yards you get. Unfortunately, this season, that hasn't been the case, as guys have been able to run away from him. As if you look, he's allowed 300 yards this season. 200 of those yards are after the catch. That's a really bad number. It really is. I do think he will get better, though. I think we'll see a good jump up next year. Linebackers, it's a position coming out of college. To be fair, sometimes takes almost a whole rookie deal to get right. Or you'll see it in maybe years 3 and 4. Think Patrick Queen, who's playing really well last couple of seasons. That wasn't the case early on for him. So again, don't hit the panic button on really any of the players on this list. It's just, hey, these guys just haven't had ideal seasons. And I got to end the list with Emmanuel Forbes. I think he honestly belongs there with guys like Bryce Young, Quentin Johnston, Tyree Wilson in terms of very disappointing rookie seasons. Because Emmanuel Forbes was really bad this season. He really was. He's allowed a completion rate of 64%, allowed 3 touchdowns. You do see a lot of the ball skills. And to be fair, let's go through the journey of this. Okay, so he was a 6 overall pick. He was coming in at, I think, sub 170. He's gotten it up to 180 since, but you just look at that, it's like, guys who are like 170 just don't exist at the corner position in this league. And if they do, they're not starters. So there was a lot of questions about, okay, how is he going to fare this year? Is he going to be... Because, he's always been a very, not stingy, but he has been a guy that's not afraid of putting his nose in the action. So, like, I would say with a thinner corner, you're worrying, is he going to get bodied during the route? Is he even going to play the run well at that size? But at Mississippi State, he was a guy that did fine in all those areas. However, you get to the NFL, it's a different level of physicality, and it is proven as such. He's not been good as a run defender. 15% missed tackle rate. Honestly, not terrible for a corner. Just not great for a defender in general. He got benched early in the season. I remember, what was it, the Seattle game? I believe it wasn't Seattle, it was Philadelphia. The guy played 5 snaps. And somehow on one of those 5 snaps, got obliterated for a 25-yard touchdown. Only played 5 snaps because he'd already been benched at that point. Kind of wild. Since then, he has come back into the starting lineup. He honestly looked good in his last appearance against the Giants. He's been dealing with an elbow injury since, but you're really hoping for a bounce back season next year. The problem is he a scheme specific player? Because that was a big reason Jack Del Rio. It's like, okay, he's coming into the right scheme. He might be honestly a quarters heavy type of corner where you want to keep him off the line. He's not going to be playing press or anything. So I don't know. Like, I really do feel like we already seen Jack Del Rio gone. Ron Rivera's probably gone after the season. I'm curious, the DC that comes in here, is he going to be a good scheme fit for Emmanuel Forbes? Or is this going to be a case where, well, Washington, you just kind of burned this pick. Just kind of got it wrong. I don't know. We'll see next season, but that's it for the video. Go ahead. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Again, remember, I'm not saying that these guys are already busts. I'm just saying, hey, let's see how they progress next season. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of optimism I had for some of the players on this list that I said had disappointed rookie seasons. But go ahead, do the YouTube thing, and until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.